Welcome. You're listening to the Do Video Podcast. Today is Monday, January 4th, 2021, and it's World Trivia Day. Now, embrace your host, Zoe Wood, the Video Confidence Coach.
G'day crew, Zoe Wood, your Video Confidence Coach here, and welcome to the kind of official first episode of the Do Video Podcast Season 2. We're kind of working with that, so there's a lot of kinks to work out, and I'm sure if there are, you will let me know either in the show notes, in the comments, on social media, on Podchaser, wherever you need to be, you let me know and I'll make sure to rectify them as we go along. So let's focus on what we have here first, which is we're going to be discussing about organizing yourself when building a personal brand. So if you want to build a personal brand and you want to be successful at that, you need to have yourself organized in multiple ways and be able to use that time wisely and efficiently to your plans. Yes, I had a point there and I missed it. So what we're going to be talking about today is some tools and some tips that I have personally used and I have found success with over my time of being an entrepreneur. I think about 11 years at this point, maybe 12. I started when I was very young. Yes, I started when I was very young when I started entrepreneurship, and I've made a lot of mistakes and I've done a lot of things wrong in my time. So I want to be able to give you some positive, useful tools that have helped me, which might or may not help you depending on how you use them and if you would wish to use them or not. But we're going to be discussing calendar blocking, tasks versus projects, and buffers or F-up time, as I like to call it. So let's get on to today's podcast and whoop. You're listening to the Do Video Podcast. So the first thing that we want to discuss is calendar blocking. So for those who aren't aware of what calendar blocking is when you use your diary or your calendar app or whatever you use to track your time and, booking meetings, booking schedules, whatever you use to actually organize the time of your day, create blocks of time. So 1 hour block, 2 hour block, 3 hour block of your day to be able to set that aside for certain type of tasks or for certain projects that you want to get done and completion. And in that theory, I have extrapolated to use it for my own means in the sense of whenever I want to complete something or I have a to-do list or what have you, I don't put it in a list and write it down, or I don't put it in like a little Notion tab or an Excel spreadsheet or what have you. I put it straight into my calendar, and if I want to get it done, I'm going to set time aside for it. Now, of course, sometimes when you're embargoing on a new task, you're not entirely sure, okay, how long is this task going to take me? I'm new at this, it can be stressful. Go with, if you think it's going to take you 1 hour, give yourself 2. If it's a new task that you're unaware of, that you're unsure of how to complete the task, give yourself that 2 hours. If it's something that you use or something that you do quite regularly, like for example, I have a weekly review system that I do every single week to keep myself in check and remind myself things are going on and keep myself organized. If you want a podcast or a video on that, do let me know in the comments below. And as I do that, it's something that I do every single week. I've been able to craft it into like a half an hour exercise that I do every single week. So I'm able to set that time aside and say, all right, half an hour, this is the thing that I need to do. I blocked it in that time and I've locked that time off or blocked it in to be able to decide I am doing this task for that long. And as we go on to the second point, we'll talk about tasks versus projects and the difference between them. But the reason I find this tool heavily useful, and it's not something that costs you any money. Say, for example, I use an online calendar that I use that appears on all of my devices. I prefer the digital method just because when I make changes to something, it appears everywhere else as opposed to a diary or a paper diary where it's in front of you and you have to, scribble and And for me, going paperless as of 2020, it doesn't work to have a diary with paper in it if you're going paperless. Works. So I use this technique to be able to block like tasks. So say, for example, if you have a lot of niggling little things or little chores that are, if you think about it, are only going to take you 2 to 5 minutes, but there's a lot of them, then you can block or calendar block time in your day, either at the start of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, wherever works for you, to be able to say, this hour I am devoting to my niggling little social media tasks, for example. Then you give yourself that hour, and then when that time comes up, you know, okay, from 3 to 4 today, I am doing this. And you're able to focus because you know that you've got a limited amount of time to complete that task or to complete those multiple tasks. And if you are able to stick to that methodology, it's going to help you a lot more in the long run. Now, of course, I'm not saying that everything is perfect. Sometimes when you're trying out something new, turns out that 2 hours is more like 4 hours, is more like a day. Then you arrange accordingly. You move your times around, you see what makes it work for you. So the night before, the day before, the week before, especially in my case, you're able to look at your week and say, okay, this is what I've got on for the week. These are what I've got on for the days. I don't need to stress about, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. You don't need to stress at all about that because it's in your calendar blocks. It's already right there, ready to see, color-coded if you like me. And you're able to see them there and be able to use them effectively for your work. And personal life too, if that's what you find useful for you. And I've used this technique and I've been able to cherry pick ideas and thoughts from many different people. And one that stands out is Amy Landino. She's, a guru of all things organization, and I cherry picked a few of the things that she had from there that were useful to me, and very much around. But when I first heard of calendar blocking, I was like, how is that going to work? How am I supposed to predict how much time I'm going to take each day to do a certain task? And that was when I was just disheveled and really, really stressed almost all of the time. So I recommend, if you feel overwhelmed or stressed for something that you feel like that you should be able to do in the time that you have available, then why not give it a shot? Try calendar blocking, do a bit of a Google search, and you'll be able to find something that works for you. Do video podcast. Moving on to the next tool that I use, tasks versus projects. So let me get this down to you. Say, for example, you have to do, you complete a report for a client. Again, I have no idea what work you do or what personal brand you're trying to build, but let's just say you have to do a report for a client. All right. You know that you've got to have, this report, this PDF document to them. So this 10-page report to them by the end of the week. Okay, cool. You've got all the details, you've got all the information, but you need to research a few of these things here, a few of these things there, and then you need to be able to get a layout. Do I need a graphic designer? It can seem a bit overwhelming when you're looking at it like that, when you're looking at it that way. But the way that you break it down and be able to chunk it down for yourself is to be able to use the task versus project method. So think of tasks as mouthfuls of a meal and your project as the meal. So when you go through and when you work through a project, you go on a little bit of, you go through each task and you don't try and eat an entire meal, get your plate up or get the bowl of soup and just go honk and try and drink it all in one go. Or, get an entire, meal in front of you and just go honk. You don't try and do that. At least most of us don't try and do that. You take mouthfuls with a fork, with a spoon, cut it up with a knife or if you use chopsticks to get it into your mouth. And that's what tasks are doing. They're breaking down this big behemoth of a project or, your to-do list or whatever needs to be done. You're breaking it down into smaller tasks that take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever works for you and what's best to organize yourself in regards to. All right, I like to think of projects in half an hour time blocks, mainly just because I can actually block it in my calendar, but I'm able to see, all right, what do I need to accomplish? Okay, I have this amount of time to do this task. And it's not a big open-ended question or it's not a big open-ended task like research this industry. That's a very big task and that's more like a project, if anything. But if you're able to break it down into spend 10 minutes researching this company within this industry for X reasons. Being able to give yourself a really clear methodology, a really clear breakdown for those mouthfuls, being able to give yourself that knife and fork, those tools for you to be able to get that meal into your mouth. I think I may have pushed the analogy a bit too far, but I think you get it. So having a clear understanding and breaking down of what challenges you have in front of you are going to make it easier and less overwhelming for yourself to be able to organize your time better, to be able to achieve what you need to achieve. And I learnt this technique from the Time Lord himself, Les Watson of Get More Time. So all those sources and also sources for Amy Landino will be in the description below or in the show notes at the dovideopodcast.com website. All right, move on to the next bit. Sponsored spot. Now we're up to our sponsor spot. So since I'm starting out this year, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. If you have listened this far into the podcast, I'm going to say, why not subscribe? We do have a Do Video podcast website where we have all the show notes, both the video version of the podcast and the audio version of the podcast, ready to go, trickling down. And why not you subscribe on your favorite podcast or catcher of choice to be able to listen to more? You're listening to the Do Video podcast. And the last tool I want to recommend you is using buffers or F-up time when having project deadlines or anything that you need to set yourself. So when working on your personal brand, you inherently have to work with other people. You have to work with other businesses, other companies, other universities, other entities other than yourself to build your personal brand. There's like an inherently, no matter what you do, you live in a society. You have to work with other people to be able to get your brand to the level that you want it to be. So in turn, you have to work with deadlines, usually deadlines imposed by other people. So the way that you do that and you make things less stressful for yourself and for your team, if you happen to have one, is to be able to use significant buffer times ahead of the actual deadline. So say, for example, if I have to, let's go back to the report analogy, I have to give a 10-day, I have to give a 10-page report to my client by the end of the week. And say it's Monday, I've got 5 days to do it. Okay. Well, I'm going to give myself a buffer time of a day and a half. Okay, so let's say on Thursday by midday, I have to have that report done. And you may be thinking, but the deadline is Friday. No, I'm giving myself Thursday midday as my deadline, as my buffer. So if something were to go wrong that is out of my control, if something that I didn't realize was going to take as much time as it should have, be able to give myself that time, that buffer time, just in case of something going wrong. And if it doesn't go wrong, beautiful. You have no stress to worry about. You can hand it in early. You can be like to the company or the client or what have you, and be like, here is this report early for you. I really wanted to make it good for you, so I got it in early for you, so you can read it over before your meeting on Monday. Whatever happens, whatever needs to happen. But you're able to use that to your advantage. But being able to give you that buffer time, or whenever I use it when talking with clients or whenever I'm talking to my team, I have a tendency of using the term F-up time. And I'm not swearing because algorithms, but I use it as F-up time because something is gonna go wrong. No matter what happens, no matter how far you feel like you're planning ahead of time, things are going to go wrong. I hate to say it. So in that case, making sure that you give yourself enough time to have things to work, then you give yourself that time. Reduce the stress, reduce the anxiety, and if you're able to get the project done ahead of time, in that buffer time, and nothing's gone wrong, then use it to work on your, content, your social media, reach out to clients, whatever you want to do with your time, so be it. But you have that buffer time ahead of you and factor it in to when you're planning on how to get things done. And it also just makes it a whole lot easier for you in the long run. So the methodology I have a tendency of using is a fifth of my time. So 1/5 is going to be buffer time. So say, for example, I've got, as I mentioned before, I've got a week to get this project done. I've given myself till midday on Thursday as my buffer time. It's a little bit over a fifth. Technically, it would have been giving me a full day on Friday as a fifth, technically. But I've given myself a little bit more time because it's not a dead fast rule. It's just a guideline. And say, for example, if you have a 2-month project, that you have 2 months to get this thing in. Well, I give myself a fortnight of time just in case something goes wrong, give myself that buffer time, give myself that F up time, and you'll have it there ready to go. TLDW, too long, didn't watch. If you block your time to complete tasks, you will get them done because you're giving yourself that time to get it done. Projects are meals and tasks are mouthfuls. Make sure you chew your food. And if you need buffer time before a deadline, make sure you give that plenty of time so there is no stress involved in any of your projects. Before we end the podcast, I would like to acknowledge and pay respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians and owners of the land on which I produce this podcast. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to face discrimination and disadvantage due to our country's colonial past. I stand with them in their fight against injustice. The Do Video podcast and Video Confidence Coach exist purely for educational purposes, and all information provided is of a general nature and should not be solely relied upon to make a branding decision. That's why you get me, to consult with you directly. Wink wink. My email is pod@vcc.training. if you're interested. I ask if you like the show to subscribe and give me 5 shining stars on your review on your podcaster of choice. And join the Video Confidence crew by following me on my socials. Links in the show notes below. Thank you for listening to the Do Video podcast today. Make sure you check us out on all of our social medias, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all those good places. You can find us at Video Confidence Coach. You can find me, Zoe Wood, at those places. And if you want to find more information about the podcast, check out our show notes on the dovideopodcast.com website. And if you are interested in finding what's next, I probably should know this. So to go next, after you've watched this, so after you've listened to this, check out our predictions for 2021. We'll see how they go, and I'll review them at the end of the year. But feel free to check out that episode. I probably should have thought that through first. Whoops. All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.